Hello there, everybody. I hope you've all had a wonderful work week. And yes, I know it's been a week for some of you. I mean, what else happened this week, right? Anyway, for the last 25 years, we've been using internet search in a pretty straightforward way. We search for a keyword or a key phrase, and whichever search engine you were using, well, it would return pages and pages and pages of results that matched either identically or conceptually to the keyword or phrase that you searched for. These listings were ranked by what became known as relevance, and that one word, relevance, became the holy grail of trying to get that coveted #1 slot against any search engine query. The question of how do we become more relevant, or how do we rank, it became the rallying cry of marketers everywhere trying for that organic, meaning free, traffic to our content. Well, a little more than a week ago, there was another big step in the evolution, or de-evolution as the case may be, of how we find and process information on the internet. OpenAI, the folks behind ChatGPT, well, they've officially launched ChatGPT as an AI-powered web search engine that brings real-time information directly into the conversations with the ChatGPT bot. Now, as of today, paid subscribers and those on the SearchGPT waitlist can access these new capabilities. Free users, as well as enterprise and educational users, will be able to take advantage of this new feature in the coming weeks. But will this change how we search for things? I mean, will this do to traditional search what traditional search did to other ways of finding information? And more importantly, does this change the big question of how we become more relevant, or how do we rank, as the big questions that marketers will be asking in the coming years? Will we now be asking, how do we become the answer, or how do we get cited as the answer in the coming years? Well, let's open up our chat bot and find out. This is a few minutes of what's new in marketing that might help you lead your business's strategy. Let's roll. Hello, everybody. Robert Rose here with What's New in Marketing. It is about what's new in marketing, but most importantly, it's something important in marketing that we think may help you become a better leader. And if we can help you or your team with content marketing services, and that includes custom training or consultation or ongoing implementation of your content marketing program, get on over to Content Marketing Institute, fill out that form, and let's schedule a Zoom call and chat about it. So, okay, do you remember the early days of the internet and search? I mean, for most of us, it was centered on the giant that is now Google, and they really set the standard for pretty much everything we have with internet search. I mean, if you've ever wondered if Google results, why they were so ugly and why they never used any images to break up pages, or why they never used really icons to help you navigate, well, that's because Google was infamous for trying to make search as fast and as efficient as possible. For years, one of the things that Google would highlight was how reducing the file size of even their logo on the search engine result page was basically saving millions of dollars of energy, money, and bandwidth, and all sorts of requirements. And that's just how big and popular Google was. The other thing that some of you of age might remember, and that relates to Google's power, was a game, well, we used to play a game back in the early 2000s called Google Whack. Yeah, that's right, look it up. This game was based on the idea that basically Google's index was so big that just about any combination of words would return a high number of search results. So the idea was to come up with a two-word combination that would not return 0 results, but return exactly 1 result. My favorite winner? Well, it was the two-word combination demurrable insufficiencies. Yeah, that's pretty good, right? Anyway, this game doesn't work anymore because of how Google changed its indexing about 15 years ago and how it returns results. But the point is that kind of like the size of the universe, it's a bit hard to even comprehend how comprehensive, popular, and ubiquitous Google search became and how much it has influenced how we access information in our lives. But AI search is now growing. We've seen Google begin to include AI-related search into its search engine results, but it's just one component of their classic search engine page, so it didn't feel quite that disruptive. And just a little more than a week ago, well, now OpenAI has launched web search integrated into ChatGPT's existing interface. The feature determines when you can click or tap into web results based on queries, though users can also manually trigger web searches by just clicking a little button. The company's web search launch finally closes a key competitive gap with rivals like Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, and of course Perplexity, which have long offered real-time internet access in their AI conversations. But you would have expected Microsoft and Google to have web search right away, right? These are the companies behind the two popular web search engines. And remember, both Microsoft and Google were fast followers in the web search business. There were plenty of search engines that came before them, and it was Google that really redefined what web search would become. So is OpenAI doing the same thing here, a fast follower that will be better? Is it better already? Well, I took a deep dive. And as a user, I have to say it's pretty darn impressive. There's a Chrome extension that once you plug it in, changes your browser address and search bar to be defaulted to ChatGPT instead of Google. I tried it for some of my more common everyday searches, such as marketing news this week and what's the 10-day forecast for weather in my area, and the results were actually very good and helpful. Although it does seem to pollute the ChatGPT interface a little bit because the quote, answer unquote, appeared in the window and the query itself conveniently goes right to your left-hand activity tracker. And that can be nice, but I found over time it started to get a little messy in there. And the cited sources for the answer appear on the right, and then a general search engine results, about 12 of them appear next. Now, this is the interesting part. As far as I can tell, it cites somewhere between 3 and 5 sources in a query and then provides another 12 or so organic results. And that's it. There is no page after page of results like you have in Google. Now, some may find that bad and some may find it good, but one thing is for sure is that if they keep that, the ChatGPT search takes off, well, it will be a battle royale for one of those 12 spots in a search query. Here's the other kicker. There are already emerging articles that speak to how OpenAI is indexing and finding and ranking content to display. Spoiler alert, they're already using Microsoft's Bing index, and that makes sense given their partnership with the company, but they're also using their own indexing bot. And this came through in my tests. The results on Bing were not the same ranking for ChatGPT search. For example, I did a search for, quote, workflow tools on ChatGPT, and Techopedia was the number 4 organic search result. But on Bing's web interface, well, it's somewhere around 15th and on page 2. So what's Techopedia doing that the others aren't doing to get it so high in ChatGPT? There were also really subtle changes to when I changed my search query in ChatGPT. So for example, I changed it to, okay, well now I'm really serious. Can you tell me what the real best workflow tools are? Interesting to me, it came back with very similar results, but they were different, only changing some of the order of the search results. And you really think, I didn't change the query there. I just said, okay, now I'm really serious. Tell me what really matters. Anyway, if you change up the search in ChatGPT, for example, I changed it to best workflow tool. I changed it up to I need a workflow tool for marketing content. Which one is best? ChatGPT gave me different answers altogether. Welcome to the next round of search engine optimization and query optimization. How do we become the answer to a search query or multiple versions of a search query? How do we become one of the answers cited, or how do we become a generic search result in that top 12 spots? Now, of course, there is an obvious way that OpenAI will and could and will maybe monetize this search in so many ways, and I suspect we're going to start to quickly see a way to purchase your way into many of these recommendations and lists. Finally, I decided to see how ChatGPT, for fun, would react to Google Whack, because it's going to give me an answer, right? So the one answer or the one thing that I'm trying to get to with my old game, well, maybe let's call it Chat Whack. Anyway, I tried my old winning combo of demurrable insufficiencies, which, by the way, doesn't mean anything. It's literally just 2 words stuck together trying to find one result on Google. Today in Google, by the way, the phrase in quotes produces exactly 15 results, all of which refer to the Google Whack game, by the way. But when I fed it into ChatGPT, this was my test, as generative AI is prone to do, it desperately wanted to try and create an answer for it. So instead of saying, hey, this sort of thing, this demurrable insufficiencies is not a thing. No, ChatGPT didn't do that. Instead of saying, you're joking, come on, that's not a real word or a real thing. No, ChatGPT told me the demurrable insufficiencies likely refers to the deficiencies in a legal pleading that render it susceptible to a demurrer. In California, for instance, it said, a demurrer can challenge a complaint on grounds like lack of jurisdiction, lack of legal capacity to sue, or a failure to state facts. Basically, it cites a few things that define both demurrable and insufficiency, shoves them together to try and answer the question of what demurrable insufficiencies are. Okay, but it's still not a thing. And this illustrates an interesting thing that we're going to have to watch out for broadly as users of this new technology. When you perform a Google search on some weird concept, one of the biggest pieces of insight is what you don't get, what you don't find, what Google can't find. A big piece of insight for searching for a particular restaurant or a concept or a technical answer is when you get 15 results and all of them are basically nonsense from the internet, which we can discern because there are only so many answers. With ChatGPT, we're likely to get generative AI desperately making up responses and answers to questions that don't make any sense. And in some cases, these are made-up answers that are likely to be combinations of sources that may refer to one part of the query or another, and we start to infer meaning out of that. So just remember, you might get an answer from ChatGPT web search, but it might not be the answer or certainly not the best answer. Big adventures all the way around for search, marketing, and AI, and ChatGPT search might just be a tipping point that brings us into it. And that's a few minutes of what's new in marketing. And if we can help you think through some of these issues, reach out, won't you? We can certainly help. And in the meantime, remember, it's your story to tell. Find your demurrable insufficiencies, and then make sure you rank for them. I'll see you next week.